Welcome back to Building New Hampshire. Next up is a guest you've seen on here before because he's so smart. He does such a good job with mortgages and residential lending that had to bring him back because there's some changes in the market we want to talk to you about. So let's welcome back my friend Ray Tweedy from Waterstone Mortgage. Thanks for being back on Building New Hampshire.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
So since you last on, Ray, the market's gone crazy again. Interest rates are up. People are scared. People are afraid that their housing is going to collapse. And so I wanted to bring you back on to kind of calm us all down, refocus us, that the economy is not going in the tank, that your home value is not going to drop down through, that you can still get a mortgage and still affordable because you're too young. I'm old. I remember when people were excited to get a 15% interest rate on their mortgage and they were buying houses. So interest rates aren't even near there, but let's talk about what's your perspective. Ray, you do millions, if not billions of dollars of loans each year through Waterstone Mortgage. What's going on with the market? Why is it still crazy? And should we be stressed?
So no, we shouldn't be stressed. And the sky is not falling. The news media may tell you something else, but the best advice I can give you is get local advice. So years ago, we had a housing crisis. You and I know we were part of that, right? We watched all of the sky was falling down. So 15 years ago, we had very high unemployment. We had a crisis in the economy, and a lot of it was started by housing. So builders had built more houses than there were people to buy all those years ago. So fast forward to today, and people say we're having trouble in the housing market. We are. It's not a housing market problem that's going to cause a bust. There are more buyers now than there are buildable units. Inventory is down. In New Hampshire, we're in most cases less than 2 months inventory, whereas we need to have 3 to 6 months inventory to have a normal market. And I've been around for quite a long time. I know maybe you can't see all my silver hairs on the camera, and I appreciate the gentleman editing the film for that. The reality is, when I started in the banking business, 8.5% was a good interest rate. My first mortgage, you were my realtor, was over 7%, and we thought that was a good deal. So it's all relative interest rates when you're active in the marketplace. And you're right, affordability is still there when you look at sky-high rent prices. But also, in the last decade, buyers have been far more qualified than I've seen in a lot of years. They have some savings. They have a good grasp of credit, and they're not trying to swing for the fences of affordability. They don't come to me and say, give me the maxed out pre-qualification. I want to spend every penny I have. They're much smarter about it, and they budget better. So you're right. The thought of I'm losing equity. I saw a headline recently. We lost $1 trillion, almost $1 trillion in home equity in our country because growth is slowing. That's true. But the article fails to tell you that there's $11 trillion in home equity in this country. Still all-time highs. So if you're trying to scare people, you can take a small number or a piece of a fact pattern and you can make a very sensational story. But the reality is the housing market is in very good shape. Rates going up have slowed the number of buyers, but there are still more buyers than there are homes for sale. And as you know, there are some houses that are lingering. And as a realtor, it means they're not priced appropriately for the market. Some sellers still think it's a seller's market and they can swing for the fence. If your home's appropriately priced and you're working with professional real estate agents who know what they're doing, it's going to sell in days, not weeks, not months like it would in a bad market. So the market's really good. And my best advice, as I said, is to go and work with a local lender like us, me and my team at Waterstone Mortgage. We have great pre-approval products we talked about last time on the show. We will write you a mortgage before you even find a house. So you know what you can afford, and then you can go out there and be the best buyer you can be in the market, and you can be more competitive, and you can win that bid and get your house. Last year in New Hampshire, on average, with the news media telling you the sky is falling, we had 10% growth in our state on average across the state. That's amazing. So we had last year, at the beginning of the year, the highest ever increase in rates, mortgage rates, in the shortest period of time ever that Freddie Mac has been tracking for the last 50 years. And we still grew at 10%. We still have low inventory. So the housing market is in very good shape, and the best time to buy, and I'm sure you would agree, is now. We have this saying, it's kind of a joke in my business on the mortgage side, you marry the house and you date the rate. And as I tell my clients, you may not like the rate today, and I may not like it either. But if you can afford the house, you can then be eligible in the future for a free refinance transaction because the rates will go up and down over time, just like they have for you and me in the last 30 years.
Absolutely. Days are gone of our grandparents where they got the mortgage and they rode that thing all the way to the last payment. You're refining, you're selling your home, you're doing other things. So get the home you want. Know that those rates are going to fluctuate. But if you like a home, go get the home. Don't wait, because by the time, I shouldn't be telling the banker anything, but in real estate land, by the time you wait for the house price to drop or the interest rate to drop, the house value goes back up. So guess what? You're still paying the same you were. And they're artificial numbers, but before we talk about how to stay in your home longer and how to age in your home longer, let's talk about on the front end of this. We have viewers all around the state of New Hampshire, all across New England, and they're thinking like, I want to buy a home. All right, Ray Tweedy from Waterstone Mortgage, I'm going to do it. I'm going to call a realtor, I'm going to call a mortgage broker. What are the first 2 or 3 things that anyone thinking about buying a home should do?
They should go and get pre-approved. If you don't have any regular checks on your credit and you're not sure where your credit is at, that is a huge factor in interest rates, in program availability. So take a look at your credit. Take a look at what you're paying now in your monthly budget, your real honest budget about cash flow. And I say start with the banker first, not because I want them to come to me first, but the reality is affordability. And a well-prepared buyer is then going to go to the real estate agent saying, I know what I can afford and I know roughly where I want to live. And the real estate agent is the expert to find the house. I'm just the money guy. I understand all the math and I make the math problem work so that it's affordable and good for the client, because we want them to be successful homeowners. From there, you decide where you want to be. And depending on where you are in our state, whether you're in a bigger city, a smaller town, there are certain programs that you're eligible for or not eligible for. So it's important to understand what kind of financing you're going to be looking at. And that's in some respects dictates where you may want to buy based on eligibility, program eligibility. So I would say
Such
do that.
as what, like rural development or FHA or VA?
Absolutely.
Or like
Yep, and even certain condominiums, based on how they're structured, would be eligible for certain financing versus ineligible for financing. So you're right, it runs the gamut, and it's important to understand what you want to put into the transaction from a financial perspective, then where you want to be and what your credit looks like, and we put all those things together. We call it CIA, not the government agency, credit income asset. We look at all of that to understand that, and that way when you go and meet with your real estate professional, they have a better bearing. It's easier for them to make a search, as you say. We start with a funnel this big and then we help it get smaller so that when it comes to you, the real estate agent, it's much easier and less time consuming. And in a very competitive market like this, you want to be on top of your game to be able to edge out somebody else's offer on that home you want to buy.
And we're going to talk about this at the end of our interview, but how can someone find you? How can someone get a hold of Ray Tweed at Waterstone Mortgage?
Absolutely. They can find us online, my Waterstone page for the Portsmouth, New Hampshire team. Best thing to do for me is to give me a call or a text. 603-842-0286 is my personal cell. My email is rtweedy, which we can have the guys put up for me, at waterstonemortgage.com. So a phone call, a text. My office is right on Pease Air Force Base on the trade port, right across from Lanza. Pop in. We're happy to make a cup of tea and coffee and run numbers for you.
Well, you're an Air Force kid, so it's good for you to go back to an Air Force base.
Where I was born.
Where you were born.